hey, this is my brand. Like, it has to be trustworthy. It has to look really good. It has to convert really well. These projects tend to take a really, really long time. And that was kind of like the basis for Replo is like, yes, you can get something amazing working with just Shopify, but like, how do we get that customization? How do we get those integrations? How do we make, the brand story, the story on your website, which is, arguably the most important channel in e-commerce. How do we make that tell a compelling story for their customers, right?
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company. Powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
This episode is brought to you by Tapcart, the #1 mobile app builder for D2C e-commerce brands on Shopify. Now, if you haven't heard of Tapcart, they're a no-code platform that makes it crazy easy for you to turn your Shopify store into a mobile app that your customers will absolutely love. The integration with your store is seamless and can be used directly in the Shopify admin. And everything is real-time synced, so all your products and collections, they all get pulled into the app without any extra effort on your part. Intelligent brands are winning today, knowing that push notifications are the key to reaching the top segment of customers in the age of saturated email and text marketing. Marketing truly is an attention game, and push notifications is the key to building your community and lifetime customer value. Now, with BFCM around the corner, now is a perfect time to launch a mobile app for your store. The Tapcart team makes it super easy to get your app live in the App Store, all in 2 weeks or less. You'd be surprised how light the lift is to get started, so I highly recommend that you check out Tapcart. Even if you're not sure if a mobile app is suitable for your store, it's totally worth a 30-minute free demo to learn about how this tool can help. Now, Tapcart is offering up to 3 months for a limited time leading up to this peak season. So take advantage of their best deal of the year by booking a free 30-minute demo at tapcart.com/fastlane. That's tapcart.com/fastlane. Hey there, my name is Steve Hutt. I'm Success Manager here at Shopify, and welcome back to the 6th season of E-commerce Fastlane. I know there's plenty of podcast choices out there in Shopify, kind of e-commerce and marketing and branding, and just the fact that you're here today means the world to me, and I know it does for my featured guest. New episodes are released twice weekly, and they're available from all your favorite podcast apps like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. We're also streaming live now on Amazon Music and on YouTube, so if you like to consume your podcast that way, you can go check out those platforms. Now, in today's episode, my guest is Yuxin Zhu, who is the CEO and the co-founder of a company called Replo, and that's Replo. And what they are is they're a no-code page builder, and they help marketers and designers to make pixel-perfect landing pages on Shopify, all without a developer. I think that's one of the big challenges that I find in the market, or reasons why marketers don't necessarily get involved with a Shopify build or landing pages, because it is quite complex, and they can do all the mock-ups they want in Figma or in Photoshop, and then they're forced to give it over to a developer to actually implement it. I think it's a really kind of archaic way of doing business, and it's not at scale anymore, where I feel Replo really has things dialed in. So I want to learn a lot more from Yuxin about his platform and how they're able to really help, I say even supercharge your store really with really cool landing pages that convert. So hi, Yuxin. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Hey, great to be on.
Absolutely. So, I hopefully didn't butcher the top here about what Replo does. And it's always great to hear it kind of in the founders, kind of like, almost like the elevator pitch about what specifically, why are you building this product and what sort of problem are you solving today?
Yeah, you got it absolutely right. So basically what Replo enables businesses to do is build really high quality, highly converting landing pages on Shopify without having to, go bother their development team or spend a lot of time.
Yeah, it is kind of a pain having to do that sort of thing. I think that's one of the advantages I have of how it connects with the app and how it allows. I just love seeing and I had a chance just before recording today actually to go in to the App Store and download it and then actually see how this customizable page builder actually works. And it's amazing, some of the pre-designed landing pages for all different types of people, how you can get started really quickly. It's really meant and focused for marketing people, but it seems very powerful that it has this, drag and drop and publish very, very quickly. So it's pretty cool kind of what you've built.
No, thank you. And thanks for trying it out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I have a demo store. I'm not back into commerce yet, but I should someday kind of walk the walk a little bit too, I think at some point. I'm sure it may add on kind of an entrepreneurship store, maybe associated with e-commerce Fastlane. So that's kind of what a plan might be into the future, just to kind of be on top of what is it like to actually own a brand today from starting point to growth. So I think I might go down that journey in the future. But so I want to talk about the origin story, because it's interesting to me why people build what they build. I think it's a lot. Usually the story is this. It's not just, hey, I want recurring revenue from a SaaS company. I want the MRR. I like that predictability factor. I mean, I think it's a business and it's here to make money. Like I get that part of the story. But on the flip side though, why this? And let's talk about how the founding team came together to get this product out to market.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can start with the founding team a little bit. So I know my co-founder Noah from college. So we both studied computer science at Berkeley together. And I think we actually met during orientation, like the first day of college. And we were in the same dorm together and we did projects together in school. So he's one of my really close friends. And actually during college, I always had worse grades for sure. He's definitely a much smarter guy than I am. And we started this little website. It was called berkeleytime.com. And at Berkeley, there was this thing where all the classes start 10 minutes late, just so people have time to walk to class. And back when classes weren't on Zoom, right? And we started this website where it was called berkeleytime.com, and it would allow people to look up classes. It would allow them to register for classes. And Berkeley's course scheduling system used to be built on a phone network, which was super crazy. You'd think that a school that was number one or number two in computer science would have a better system in place, but they really didn't. And we digitized that. And by the time we graduated, we had over 1 million visits a year. We were doing Amazon affiliates, and we were using that to pay for our tuition. And it was such a great learning experience for me as a student, as an undergrad during that time. And it was such a good bonding experience as well with Noah. We just got really, really close because we were oh my God, we need to work on this website every day after class and all that stuff. So we actually ended up selling that to the university, and now it's one of their main kind of course catalog, course registration systems that, still exist years and years after we graduated. So I always, thought that, if I ever worked on anything in the future, I would want to work with Noah on it because, even though he's my co-founder, even though he's my business partner, he's always one of my best friends first, right? And kind of almost co-founder second.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I actually went to berkeleytime.com, and you're correct. It is still live. And it's so interesting that that's kind of how things work. It's strange that once again, right from the early days of university or college, you're able to come up with a plan to solve some of that problem. And then here we are, then you sell it back to the college. So it's
yeah, it's weird how things turn out. I mean,
pretty wild. So I want to dig into the product now specifically. I think that's kind of the meat and potatoes why people are here today. But you mentioned that, there's designer side and then there's the developer side. And I think there's some unique skills of being either a designer or a developer, and sometimes they're different skill sets. And so can you talk a little bit about your approach to Replo and then creating these landing pages that you don't need to be a developer or a designer, you can just be a marketer, and then how the application all works based on that kind of mindset?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think one of the reasons, we thought Replo would be kind of this really interesting product is because my background is in software engineering and development, but I'm kind of a bit of a closet designer. Before this, I was an engineering manager at Uber. Did a lot of designs there, and our marketing budget there was massive. But even at that stage, we still needed developers to kind of go in and build a lot of landing pages for Uber, right? Because there was so much branding involved. There was a lot of design. The landing pages needed to be really high quality. They needed to speak to different markets, different people in these markets, and there was just so much stuff to build. And I think that's like one of the major kind of inspirations for Replo is that like I used to do a bit of e-commerce consulting as well. And I was like, oh my God, these brands are like, they're so design focused. They're so brand focused. They're so marketing focused and they want to tell the story, but they're kind of really stifled when it comes to development. Like I think the Shopify ecosystem and the brands on Shopify have really evolved in the last 5 years, right? Like when in the beginning, it was a lot of like drop shipping, it was a lot of like small businesses. And now a lot of these businesses are like massive, right? They're like, they have like hundreds of people. There's like designers, there's marketing teams. And I think the development side of things just hasn't really caught up. And when designers and marketing teams want to tell these stories about like, hey, this is my brand, like, it has to be trustworthy. It has to look really good. It has to like, convert really well. These projects tend to take a really, really long time. And that was kind of like the basis for Replo is like, yes, you can get something amazing working with just Shopify, but like, how do we get that customization? How do we get those integrations? How do we like make, the brand story, the story on your website, which is, arguably the most important channel in e-commerce. How do we make that tell a compelling story for their customers, right?
I see. And, I'd like to maybe just share the audience too a little bit about kind of how the solution actually works. So once someone adds the app to their admin, what are they going to see? Because I guess my thought is that a lot of the magic, is it going on and is it happening from within your solution? It then pushes forward to a connected store, to the page we're building, because there obviously will be a custom URL or it'll go into a certain collection. And so I'm just curious on kind of like the connection between your platform and the magic you create on one side and how it relates to getting pushed over to a live or even a sandbox instance for testing purposes. Maybe you can kind of walk us through both sides.
Yeah. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible to use Replo, even if, you didn't have a technical background, you weren't super sure even like how Shopify, kind of the core of Shopify worked. So when you install Replo into your Shopify admin, you get put into this kind of like drag and drop editor, and you can, build things from scratch, but you can also choose from hundreds of templates that we have. And these templates are already pre-designed, already responsive. We know they convert well, and you can, just drag and drop these sections in and just update the copy and the photography of your products as well. There's a big blue publish button on the top right. Once you smash that button, that page gets compiled into Shopify. So we figure out all the things that needs to be on the page, and we actually optimize all of the images. We optimize all of the scripts on the page. So the page still loads really quickly, which is really important for landing pages. And then we send all of that kind of magically back into Shopify, and it loads as a Shopify page within your Shopify store. And the amazing thing about that is that all of the existing analytics you have, all of the existing A/B testing you have just works out of the box. So we try to make it like a really kind of magical experience, from editing your page, putting in kind of your brand story, publishing it, and then sending it over to Shopify.
Very cool. So let's walk through maybe an example. Let's say, someone's added the app, they're ready to go. I just would like to understand kind of like, I don't know if you have like a specific example, maybe even a project that you've been involved with or seen a brand use your solution. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is that people listening today and saying, hey, okay, fair enough. I don't have access to a developer. I'm not doing landing pages. I know the value of having landing pages, but like, what are others doing? What's their day-to-day, or what does their workflow look like if I have Replo activated in my admin? So maybe I don't know if you have a brand that you could think about that would kind of highlight the flow of kind of what people could expect.
Yeah, totally. I think I have two examples here and kind of two ways people work within Replo, right? The first way is like you want to get into landing pages, but you kind of don't really know where to start. We have like really great resources for that. So you install the app on your Shopify admin, go in, and then there's, dozens of different templates that you can choose from. And the templates are already kind of pre-labeled with different like types of campaigns you would want to use it for, or like maybe there's like an about us page or like a product page, or like maybe you want to sell bundles and you want to bundle your products together. So there's already kind of these different templates that you can play around with, and you can literally at the click of a button just import that into your project, and you can start editing it. You can put in your brand story, your copy, the imagery, and then you're pretty much ready to go. So people have launched pages within 10 or 15 minutes. Without ever talking to a developer, without ever talking to anyone on their team, and they can just do it themselves, like on a Friday night. And we see people using it for hours and hours, like on the weekends. And it's like amazing. Like people are like, I'm addicted to this. Like I'm launching so many different pages, and they run that process like totally by themselves. There's another way to work with our team and our product, which is that we also, not only wanted to create really, really great software, I think it's also important that we're actually solving people's problems, right? And enabling them to do more. So we're also creating this community of experts and freelancers and agency partners. And, like, I think everyone has a different price point and we don't make any money off of this, but we try to provide like basically expert resources for people. So we work with a lot of agencies. We work with a lot of big brands like Hexclad and Caraway and Jambies. And like a lot of times, like they have designs already in Photoshop or Figma. And their team, they're just trying to launch like dozens and dozens of landing pages. So they'll actually send us the Figma files. We'll connect them with an expert, and the expert can actually help them turn around that landing page in Replo in like 2 or 3 business days. And we can parallelize that. So it enables some brands to launch like 20 or 30 landing pages a week, which is really insane. And not only do we help people, bring in these designs from, these design tools into Replo and launch them on Shopify, we also have, freelancers that will help you design the landing pages, write the copy, and basically, they'll meet with you for 30 minutes and talk about, what your goals are as a brand, as a company, and then just go off and 5 business days later, like come back with a landing page with all the copy and designs already done. So kind of like all of these services, I think, is another way to work with us. Is like, everyone's busy. Everyone has so many different things to do. So definitely kind of 2 options there.
One thing I would say that a lot of brands, I have 40 some brands that I manage at Shopify, and some recurring themes that come up is most people with their social ads, think of, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these kind of channels. They, so they have that ad creative in the formats for those channels, but typically they're sending their traffic to a product details page or potentially kind of a curated collection page just to show, shop a look and just kind of some larger things. And so I'd argue that's probably not the best way to do things. And I think a lot of brands just don't understand what technology is available, or they feel it's complex. And I think that's where Replo kind of fits into the mix. Are you able to talk a bit about that, about maybe, I guess, the upside or the conversion lift and the branding that goes along with having these social ads running, but then instead of a PDP page, you go to a custom page that's being exclusively designed in Replo for the sole purpose of telling the brand story, and then, and then optimize for conversions, which is different sometimes than the PDP page.
Yeah, totally. And I think like we get told about kind of like, hey, we should use landing pages and like we should use this and that, right? And we kind of like never really think about like kind of like why we're doing it. And I think like the term kind of brand story that you mentioned is really interesting, because like I think the way that I've come to thinking about this is like when someone clicks on ad or clicks on a piece of like, social content on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, you're basically telling them a story as a brand, right? As a company. And you're like, this is a compelling reason why our product is right for you. And we're going to keep telling you that story step by step as you go through clicking on the ad, clicking on the social post, going to whatever part of the website you land on, and then eventually, buying our product and hopefully like coming back and buying more of our product, right?
Right.
And it's just kind of like never ending story. And the way I imagine having, a standard PDP in the middle of the story after you click on the ad is kind of like you're telling this great story and your hook is always a little bit different. But then, when the story gets to the most interesting part, like it's always the same, right? Like it's always going to the same kind of like content. So I think that's kind of how I think about, a lot of ad traffic going to PDPs is like you're telling this really kind of like narrowly focused, compelling story to that user in that segment, in that market. And then you just take them to a really generic page. And the thing that landing pages and even to some extent, like multiple kind of different PDPs and things like that, like they allow brands to tell different stories for each segment, right? Because the product that you're selling could have a different use case for one customer versus another. They might be buying it in a different context, different stage of their life. And you want to tell a story that connects with the end customer. And that's kind of like inherently why I think landing pages just work a lot better than PDPs, because they're able to tell that story. And you see that at the end of the day in the data and in analytics, like the conversion rate will be 3, 4, 5 times higher because people are connecting with the story that you're telling on that page.
So I'd agree with that. Brand story. And I also think the landing page too, you can add extra social proof through UGC content that you've got licensed from some of your partners or influencers that you work with, reviews. You can really expand it out more than just what PDP page has, because I think there are some standards about how you want to develop a PDP page. It could be a theme constraints, but then you don't have those constraints. You can really weave a full narrative around this particular product, the problem it's solving, and what others think of that product. Social proof, UGC reviews. still telling the brand story. One other question I have about that,
Yeah.
I'm sure brands are going to ask the same question. They love using Shopify Payments as their payment gateway, but the Shop Pay is the accelerated checkout option, and they even Shop Pay installments, which is our connection to Affirm for the 4 micropayments. So how does that all fit in the mix? Because as you're weaving this narrative, are you able to have direct access to a dedicated Shop Pay or an installments button from within a landing page that you're creating, since it's going over Shopify anyways? I'm just curious on kind of how that connection may work.
Yeah, the short answer is that because we natively integrate with Shopify, everything that you get within Shopify automatically can be used in Replo. So if you have a Shop Pay button, or if you have other checkout options, you can embed those directly on a Replo landing page.
Okay.
And like that's one of the really powerful things about working natively and directly with Shopify, right? Is like you get all the analytics, the A/B testing, and the payment options out of the box, and then it's kind of just like a created thing. It's like, okay, well, here's the different parts of the website. Here's the different parts of my flow that I have, with whether it's payments or bundles or like UGCs or like social or anything. How do I like basically put these pieces together so that I'm telling this compelling story about like why people need to buy this product, and how do we make it easy for them to buy this product, right?
If your Shopify store is making 5 or 6 figures per month in revenue, then you should totally consider using TapCart to create a mobile app for your store. Now, innovative brands know that their customers prefer shopping on mobile apps, and that push notifications are the key to reaching your top segment of customers in the age of saturated email and SMS marketing. Now, for a limited time leading up to the peak season, TapCart is offering up to 3 months for free. So take advantage of their best deal of the year by booking a free 30-minute demo at tapcart.com/fastlane. That's tapcart.com/fastlane. One thing I did kind of a bit of research before recording today, and I think, and I could be wrong here, but I'm interested around the A/B testing feature, because I think that's one of the things that maybe competitors in the space that, maybe quote unquote are doing landing pages.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that a lot of these other solutions are kind of forced to have to use other A/B testing tools, from Google down, whatever, flavor that you believe you might need to kind of test the quality and all that kind of stuff. Can you walk us through kind of what sort of A/B testing features you have built into Replo? And then what's the upside of doing an A/B test on a landing page?
Yeah, so Replo today still integrates with, we don't have A/B testing features natively, but we make it pretty easy to integrate with these other tools.
Okay.
And the caveat there is like, I think with A/B testing, the pages needs to be extremely performant.
Yeah.
It needs to be extremely fast. A lot of times when people do A/B testing, like the page will load, and sometimes maybe they're even doing A/B testing with pricing, which is always a really scary thing, right? And then price changes or like some image changes. And we try not to like have any of that on any page with Replo. So I think that's one of the caveats of kind of like doing A/B testing with Replo. But I think integrating with other systems, I think it allows you to just have all your analytics in one place, because otherwise we'd have to kind of build this whole analytics system, which is a whole their kind of like business proposition. And your second question was around A/B testing and why people do A/B testing.
Yeah, like I guess I'm sure there's a self-explanatory answer to that, but because I think a lot of people are just not A/B testing, they don't know what to do, and I think A/B testing as a mindset is something that needs to be done consistently all the time. You should always be running hundreds of tests a year on your site. It's not just color of a buy now button. I think there's a lot more to it than that. So I just wanted to have your mindset around that.
Totally. I mean, so I think people hear the word A/B testing and like you mentioned, they sometimes think like, okay, like maybe I should change the button color, right? And then it's kind of this like reductionist thing where it's like, okay, like how much would changing a button color like really change things, right? And I think it's really important to kind of like back up and be like, okay, like I think testing in general is really important, right? And like testing different brand stories, testing different landing pages, testing different creatives, testing different ways you're able to connect with your customers. So that testing could be across, multiple pages. The same ad could be driving to different landing pages, and you can really easily do that with Replo. But I think it's important, when you're doing A/B testing to set a baseline, right? Because all A/B testing is you're saying, hey, I'm going to test a bunch of stuff. I don't know what's going to work. And then I'm going to use data to inform my decision making about which, landing pages, which creative or whatever is more highly converting. And you're basically using this kind of like data driven approach, which is why I kind of like never recommend like people build one landing page or do a whole big rebranding and then never test it, because all that is a baseline. It's kind of like saying, okay, this is like baseline kind of like what I know works. I can always kind of go back to it. But now because I know this page is converting at, 1.5% or 1% or whatever. Now I can go in and, change maybe different font sizes, different social content, different like you can change anything, right? And like change the graphics, change the order of like how these sections are laid out, because you're trying to convince the end user to buy your product. And sometimes it's really counterintuitive. There's like some really kind of weird things that work, but testing is the most important. And then you're using all of that from whatever you're using for A/B testing to drive your decision making about like, what parts of your brand story, what parts of your product are resonating with your customers.
Love that. I think I'm going to put in the show notes some links to, I guess, some of the more popular A/B testing tools that I see kind of in the Shopify world. Some of them would be like Optimizely, comes up quite a bit. Google Optimize, obviously a Google owned property. A/B Tasty comes up quite a bit. And then a couple others are OmniConvert. I love OmniConvert. And also there's VWO, which is the visual website optimizer. So these are kind of like, I guess, my top kind of 5 that I see. There's a few others and a few other apps, and there's some kind of unique niche apps of just kind of pricing optimization and a few other ones that are available in the App Store. But I think overall, if you get into the mindset of building landing pages, but then using some mid-market tools to saying, I consistently over time, I need to be testing the success metrics, whatever the KPIs are for. And I think it makes a big difference in paid social by purposely showing certain landing pages based on the changes that you're doing, and then set the test, have an endpoint, do a postmortem, and then learn from that and move on to the next test and kind of keep going. That's a whole separate podcast I think about A/B testing methodologies and stuff.
We can talk about this for years.
Absolutely. So I want to pivot to a story now, because you mentioned, like, I even got to the homepage. You really have a lot of really notable brands that are on your homepage. And so, I'm looking at Hexclad. It's a really big, pots and pan company. Nathan James, obviously, is, just an amazing fashion retailer. Jones Road Beauty. And it's just like a ton. You have a lot. I'm sure there's way more than just what you're showing kind of on the homepage. But is there any Shopify merchant, ideally, that is notable that you're thinking of that is using Replo? They didn't have it, they saw a need for it, implemented it, and then is there anything publicly we can talk about the success of using your platform?
Yeah, totally. This is kind of like an interesting story, but one of our earliest customers was this company called Studs. And they're kind of a unique company on Shopify. They both sell through e-commerce. They're a piercing kind of earring company. So they sell jewelry and earrings through Shopify, but they also have physical retail. So they've opened up, I think, over a dozen stores across the US. They're based in New York. And they're kind of this like kind of multifaceted kind of like retail e-commerce business. And we started working with them really early on. And I remember we were still in Y Combinator at the time. And we were kind of like, hey, like, we have this like really great idea where, we're going to let, your designers and marketing team kind of build these pages without, having, to bother your development team. And they were really kind of like strapped for resources at the time. And, we kind of had to like convince them of this kind of like solution. And they were like, okay, like this sounds pretty compelling, but like, how do we know that you're not gonna like disappear in like, like 3 days or whatever, right? Or you're not gonna like pivot to a different idea. And we had already started working on it. It was kind of a really kind of testament to kind of like the kind of hustle that we had. And we, launched all these pages for them. Like this was before the editor really even existed. Initially, they were like, this is just another startup. Like, like we don't know what's going to happen to them, but worst case, like they'll build the pages for us manually or something. And over the course of like a few months, like we just noticed that they were, more engaged. They were building more pages, and like, and for them, like, it's not just about landing pages for, to buy their product or whatever. It's also about user education, because like getting your ears pierced, going to like, traditionally kind of like going to like a tattoo parlor or whatever, like that's kind of like, there's people have concerns, people have, they need to be educated about like the safety and environment, and there needs to be a certain level of trust, right? And I think that's like one of the main things about buying something online generally is like, there's a lot of, websites and stuff trying to like steal your money. They're not really trustworthy, and bringing that level of like trust and compassion and empathy to like your brand is really, really important, especially if something that affects your body. So they were really kind of like interested in kind of like, hey, how do we get these things like, pixel perfect on brand? Like this needs to tell a very compelling story. And we needed to match that like really high bar. It wasn't just like, hey, here's a landing page we're going to use for a campaign and then we're going to throw it away. And that trust, just took a lot of time to build between our team, their team. And it was kind of this crazy progression. And this was like, a year ago, it wasn't that long ago, but we ended up like launching our product. We launched Replo and they started using it and they were like, oh my God, wait, this is like freaking awesome. And, we would see them using it for like 7-8 hours a day. And like, it's kind of this like kind of interesting kind of like founder story. It's kind of this interesting kind of like how we got started story, but like they turned into one of our biggest advocates, like basically over the course of a few months. And, they're using it to launch like hundreds of pages at this point. And, the level of support that we provided them, the level of be like, hey, like, we really want this feature. We really want like, this button to like call a phone number or like kind of all of these like different custom features, and we would build them. And like, that's kind of like the level of customer success and help and like support we want to give to brands. And like, even to this day, like sometimes we'd hop on a call, like we have a book a demo button on our website and you can, just click it. And then you actually can meet with someone on our team. Like our team is still relatively small. And like, sometimes people are like, oh, it's like a, waste of time to like, talk to every single customer. And I'm like, I want that because I want to learn about, what the challenges they have are,
right.
What solutions they're considering. And like, I still try to like meet with like random people that like start using our product, even if, they're not paying for our product. I'm just like, hey, I want to like hear your backstory. And sometimes people are surprised because they're like, oh, why is the founder like reaching out? Right. That's like kind of really awesome. But, I think I want to have that mentality for the whole team, even as we grow. So, but yeah, that story is kind of really interesting because initially they were like, oh, like, they're really another small company trying to win our business. And now they're like one of the biggest power users on our platform. And like,
yeah,
it's really amazing. It makes me feel really good that, we were able to kind of deliver on that promise.
Oh, I love it. I know. So that's studs.com. And then I went there too. So, and I was actually checking while you were chatting about it, and I can see all the landing pages that they've created. Now, some of them are just custom pages that really have nothing to do. They're more like telling the brand story or finding a location. Then you can really start digging into, instead of calling it education, they call it, eardication.
Yeah.
And, and you go to that landing page, it's lovely because it's almost like they're using your solution as a blog and a blogging platform, but in kind of custom pages. These are, I would even call these pillar posts, or kind of like, they become like the topical authority around certain themes. And so like I see about aftercare and you talk about piercing, and it's so interesting that this is what they've built through landing pages. Even noticing too, of like finding the locations. These are obviously custom pages because you can go under studio information and, you have /pages / here's the Williamsburg store in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
And so you have a standardized template that has been custom made that they've developed, but then they're able to quote unquote cookie cutter it off to any new locations, and it's all fully clickable. And like, so it seems, it's nice that you don't have to use a developer to do this. You just get you have a little bit of creative ability. You could use some, templates you have, but in this case, they've gone on their brand in their style. It's WYSIWYG, put it together and then cookie cutter it off based on multi-locations. Instead of using an app to find a location near me and bring up a Google map and all that, it's just, that's kind of, as good as that is, it's not as good as what they're doing here now, but we're having very unique images for that particular location and the directions, and pretty neat.
Yeah, no, it's so awesome as well because like I think they have national strategy this year, and even if you go to their stores, like I've been to their stores and it's like super clean, like everyone's super nice, and it's kind of like their whole kind of like brand, right? Is like there needs to be very, very high trust. There needs to be very, very high quality, and I think that's something that a lot of brands out there aspire to. And having all of the operations of all of these stores like kind of bottleneck, having to update the website or whatever, like. With Replo, they're able to basically just be like, hey, like people at these stores, they're managing, stores. So if, the hours change or if you want to update more imagery, like kind of how do we enable more people on our team to do more, right? And I think that's like kind of something that, we all struggle with as founders and entrepreneurs is like, how do we empower people on our team to do more? And that's something that Replo really enables brands to do.
Love it. So let's talk about the roadmap. I'm always curious, you're obviously doing a lot of great things right now. You're on the App Store. You've got ridiculous amounts of amazing brands. And I think it's a blue ocean of opportunity. I think most Shopify brands are not using a page builder solution. They're also not A/B testing either. So there's a lot of things people are not doing, but there's still a lot of success out there. So that's why I have you on the show today. I really want to make sure I spread that message out that A/B testing is super massively important. And number two, you don't have to get bogged down with kind of like the designer developer kind of conundrum. Your solution just works. And so I think that's been clearly articulated, I think, today. But I'm curious about like, where's the product headed? Is there anything you can share kind of publicly on kind of how 23 you believe is going to unfold, just so people kind of can get the warm and fuzzies about, you do this great today, what else can we look forward to?
Yeah, so I think like this is one of the reasons I'm like super, super excited about where our future is headed. Is like, I think at the core of it, we wanted to build this really great product, and like what we wanted to get people to use it. We wanted to spread the word. And then now there's just like so much momentum with, people using your product. Like I get emails like almost on a daily basis at this point where people are like, oh my God, this is like the best SaaS product I've ever used. Like,
wow.
And
nice.
We also have like 24-hour a day, like customer support as well. So like the support is really amazing. We want to keep that quality really high. Like, sometimes we fall a little bit short, but like we're always trying to improve as a team, and people, like message me. We have a Slack community now that has over 700 people. That Slack group was less than 20 people, like 3 months ago, like 3 or 4 months ago. And it's just grown amazingly quickly. And like, trying to create that community, and people DM me and they're like, hey, like I really want this feature, or like we have like a feature upvoting board. So there's like so much kind of like, it's not just about kind of like the software, but it's also like experts and our freelancers and our agency partners and our app partners. And like people are just like asking like random questions now in Slack. They're like, hey, like, what do I do with this, like, 3PL thing I have, or like what's the best way to run a Facebook ad? Like I'm hiring for like a graphics designer for our creatives, like, and people are just having these like organic conversations. And I'm like, I don't even care if you use the product. I don't even care if you pay for the product. It's like, as long as people are getting value out of that, I think like, people will start using Replo over time. So like, I'm not like, I think that's like, really fundamentally exciting. It's not something that I even expected when we started this company, was that like I had never built a community before, right? But it's kind of like developed organically because people are interested in landing pages, people are interested in design, and people are interested in A/B testing and brand and marketing and all that stuff, right? So I think that's kind of like the basis of like where my excitement comes from, is like, oh my God, this is actually really exciting. But I think in terms of kind of like the roadmap, so yesterday we announced that we raised a little over $4 million. And one of the major investors that were coming in was Figma. So Figma is now one of our investors. And like, I think like that kind of design to development kind of like handoff and that experience, and empowering more people to kind of get more involved in design and to some extent development as well. I think that's like kind of what's really interesting, right? Because you can kind of think about the creative process in the world today. And like, if you look at a website like Studs, or if you look at a website like Hexclad or whatever, like, you're like, oh my God, like where do I even get started building something so like nice and amazing? And like, even I'm in awe like at what they've built, right? And empowering more people to do that really easily. So we're launching this thing called Replo UI, which is kind of this massive collection of templates and like kind of brand, like guidelines around how to design for e-commerce, like different sections and templates, like you can use hundreds of them. And we're launching them simultaneously on both in Figma and in Replo. So you can design something in Figma using, the design tool Figma, and then kind of basically move it over to Replo really easily and launch these pages quickly. So kind of almost kind of like educating the world on like, what the process is for telling the story about your brand, telling the story about your company and your product, just in different facets, right? And kind of creating also that community around that. And I think, also, there's just a lot of features coming out in terms of like analytics and like, making sure your pages load quickly, potentially even like making editing even faster, like multiplayer editing and things like that. Like there's like so many features coming kind of down the pipeline, and we're trying to grow our engineering team as well. But I think fundamentally it's about like building the community and like making it easier and empowering people to like, build the things that they want to build.
Love that. What's interesting about the marketer side of it, it's like all marketers have KPIs. I mean, that's kind of in their role. They have to, roll up maybe to the director of e-commerce, or the COO of a brand as they start scaling up. And it's nice to know that there is a community out there to saying, hey, these KPIs are important for my business. I need to grow and scale it. Sometimes they're a retention marketing person or they're an acquisition person, but wherever they fit kind of in a brand as far as their marketing kind of channel that they're responsible for, it's like at the end of the day, there's KPIs and growth metrics and retention metrics that are important to that. And it's nice to know that you have a community out there can share some wins and losses in your community and stuff like that. Because I think it's where a lot of the magic happens, to be honest with you. You get inspired by others in non-competitive verticals and going, wow, that's really cool you did that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as maybe going on on a more of a broader scale in the Shopify Plus's Facebook group, for example, where it's only for Plus brands. There's 9,000 of them in there of the 12 or 13,000.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you can build that community of just open sharing and entrepreneurship and saying, this is working well for me, or, hey, I'm going to try this. I'll come back to you in a month, let you know how it worked out. I think that open sharing is so interesting. And I think it really helps everybody in the industry.
I think so too. I mean, not even to just get like philosophical about life. Like I think a lot of life is just kind of like looking up to someone and basically, following in their footsteps, right? And having that community of people, having those resources you can get to. Like I think even when we were starting out this company, we were in Y Combinator. There were so many great companies within Y Combinator, and we were like, oh my god, like how do we like one day get to that scale and that quality of business, right? So I think that's really important. And for us, it was not just like, hey, like we just want to build the software, throw it out there and see if people use it, right? It's like, okay, let's create a community, let's create resources, like let's create like, experts that you can work with, even if it's not like Replo related, like we have freelancers floating around that like we've worked with for multiple brands, like multiple Shopify Plus brands. And they're like, hey, like, like I'm helping this brand like set up email campaigns now. I'm saying, I'm like, dude, like go for it. Like, like as long as our brands are happy, like we want them in this community, want them to have the resources. Like we want them to work with really, really high quality people. And like, that's going to be a challenge for us as we grow the community larger. But that's something that I think is like the number one focus for me is like, if we don't have people who are excited about e-commerce, people who are excited about design and marketing, like we don't have anything, right? Like this is kind of like our bread and butter. So
lovely. So we are nearing the end of the show for today, but I'd like to maybe pass the floor or mic-ish over to you and just like, where do you want to, like, what's the call to action today? Like, where do you want to send people that are listening to the show and saying, hey, I agree with you, Yuxin, that, landing pages should be for me and my brand. I just haven't quite got there yet. Maybe based on this kind of conversation, people are like, yeah, I'm going to give it a whirl. I'm going to kick the tires a bit and try it out, get involved in the community. Where do you want to send people today to kind of go to that next step?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's replo.app. So replo.app.
Okay.
And there's a button there to join the community. And there's also a button there to book a demo. And, you can join the community, ask any question there you want. You don't have to get started with Replo right away. You can just be like, hey, I'm interested in A/B testing. What's the best tool out there? And we have different channels there. We can ask different questions. So I would really recommend, kind of like joining that community, because I think like, I don't want to kind of sit here and just be like, hey, like you should suddenly start using Replo, right? Like I want people to, like really understand why landing pages are important, why A/B testing is important, and what that does for their business and their brand, right? So like definitely, I think the community is a really great place to start. And if you are interested in using our page builder and start, launching some landing pages, you can also book a demo with us and you get to talk to a real life human. Like, we really try to understand your problems and recommend solutions that work for you. And we also have a find an expert button where you can, find one of our experts. But I think, joining the Slack community and booking a demo would be the best way to get started.
And I know we kind of had a little quick chit chat kind of before recording today, and I understand that you would like to share an offer for those that decide that they want to actually give the platform a spin.
Yeah, totally. So we have a 20% off offer for everyone listening to this podcast. So it's a pretty sweet deal. Mm-hmm. And if you do choose to, use Replo for landing pages and get involved in our community, 20% offer.
Perfect.
And, the community is actually free to join. So regardless of whether you're using Replo, definitely would be an exciting place to see everyone.
Perfect. Well, what I'll do is I'll have a redirect. So to ecommercefastlane.com/Replo. So REPLO. That'll redirect to a landing page that I see that you've created. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can kind of...
for you guys.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's amazing. So I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you, Yuxin, for coming on the show today. Like I feel this was a pretty impactful show, because I think that, like I said, there's a lot of knowledge that's out there, but people, they know what landing pages are very clearly. But I feel that they're just not executing on it because there's just other things get in the way in the day-to-day kind of minutia of a marketer.
Yeah.
But I also believe that knowing that you're at scale now, that you can, hey, listen, we've got hundreds of templates already pre-made. We have a community. You can bounce ideas off people. It directly connects with Shopify. It clearly works with all the native kind of checkout and customization things that we have available. It just all kind of works. And I think that's the key today is if people have learned that please do landing pages more than just going to a PDP page is number one. Do that. Again, thanks so much for coming on the show today. You very clearly have articulated the benefits of landing pages and community and kind of A/B testing. And so I want to wish you tremendous success. Congrats on getting this seed round. It's going to be obviously helpful in kind of expanding your team, the customer success that goes along with. I really wanted to help Shopify brands. And it sounds like your next step would be to become a Plus certified app partner. And that's probably next on your roadmap. So pretty exciting. So once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's really exciting and really fun.
All right. Have yourself a great day. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.